Okay, with this tutorial, we're going to look at micronutrients and macronutrients that the human body needs to function properly. We're also going to look at the malnutrition and the types of malnutrition that's found throughout the world and what we're doing to combat these malnutritional problems. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at both micro and macronutrients and the different types of macronutrients and micronutrients that the body needs in order to properly function. Now, this section is, in the biochemistry unit is pretty straightforward. You probably should spend some time in your book looking at this section, and basically it's just a lot of memorization more than anything else. So I'm just going to kind of go through and highlight some important aspects that you need to know, but it's going to be really up to you to spend the time needed to learn this material. Okay, so micronutrients are what we're going to spend some time with first. Just as the name implies, micro, meaning very small. And this means that micronutrients are needed in very small amounts, usually less than 0.005% of your body mass, which in reality these micronutrients are measured normally, typically in micrograms per day. Okay, what do we need micronutrients for? Well, they're helpful to produce enzymes, and remember, enzymes are biological catalysts, and hormones, which we've talked about that hormones are messengers. They communicate between different cells, different organs, and so forth. And we need them for other essential substances that are essential for our health. Now, micronutrients includes both vitamins and trace minerals. And there's a list of these trace minerals that you need to look at, such as iron and copper, zinc, iodine, selenium, manganese, molybdenum, chromium, cobalt, and boron. Now, again, these trace minerals we only need in micrograms per day, so very, very small amounts, or 0.005% of your body mass. Vitamins. To make a little note to yourself that vitamins are organic compounds. So the difference between a vitamin and a mineral is a vitamin is an organic compound, which you should know, and minerals are more or less elements, such as iron and copper here. So make note of those two differences. Okay, now we're going to look at macronutrients. Macronutrients, as macro basically implies, means that we need large amounts of them. And these macronutrients, important things is they're not synthesized by the body. So the only way we're going to get these is through food, intaking them into our bodies. Some examples of macronutrients are macromolecules such as proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. But there are also some minerals that we need. And remember, minerals are elements. And this is a list of minerals that we need, but in much larger quantities than in micronutrients. So you need to know some of these examples of minerals that the body requires, both on the micronutrient scale and on the macronutrient scales. So spend some time learning these, memorizing them. Okay, so as I mentioned before, vitamins are organic compounds, and there are several different vitamins. And three of them you're going to become very familiar with in just a moment. But what we normally do is we divide vitamins into two classifications. And these classifications are fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. The importance of fat-soluble vitamins that you need to know is that these are non-polar molecules. So they, being non-polar, they will not dissolve in water. So where are fat-soluble vitamins stored at? Well, they're stored in fatty tissue. Should make sense. They're fat-soluble. They're non-polar. They're going to be stored in fatty tissue. Okay. So also, I guess as the name implies, fat-soluble vitamins are soluble in fats. All right. Okay. Now, a complication to make note of is that in large quantities, fat-soluble vitamins can be detriment to our health. So we need to limit the amount of fat-soluble vitamins that we intake into our body. Whereas water-soluble vitamins, as the name implies, they are soluble in water because they're polar molecules. And you need to be able to identify the difference between fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. And when we look at some structures of vitamins, you need to be able to look at their structure and say, oh yeah, that's a fat-soluble, or oh yeah, that's a water-soluble, based on their polarity. Again, nonpolar molecules are nonpolar vitamins are fat-soluble, and polar molecules are water-soluble vitamins. Okay? So, let's take a look at... Alright, so here are three important vitamins that you need to be aware of. IB wants you to learn each one of these vitamins. You do not have to memorize their structures because you can find these three vitamins in your IB data booklet, and this is going to be found on table 21. Again, on table 21, you'll find the structures of these three vitamins. And so I would pause this for a minute, take out my IB data booklet, and look at table 21, and get familiar with these three structures and where they're at. So when you're on taking the test, you'll know where to turn. All right, the first one here up at the top is vitamin A. So this is vitamin A, also known as retinol. Okay, vitamin A, retinol. The one down below is, let's see, vitamin B, or vitamin D, sorry. Vitamin D, and one above is vitamin C, also known as absorbic acid. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some characteristics of each one of these vitamins. First of all, what you need to know about vitamin A here is that it is a fat-soluble vitamin. And what makes it a fat-soluble vitamin is really this long hydrocarbon chain right here that you see right here. That makes it fat soluble, plus this ring structure here makes it fat soluble. So IB will expect you to be able to know that vitamin A is fat soluble and to explain why it is fat soluble. It does have a little bit of polarity because it has this alcohol group sticking out on it, which makes it a little bit polar, but for the most part, vitamin A is very non-polar. So non-polar. Alright. Now down below, vitamin D. Vitamin D is very characteristic by having all of these ring structures that you see here, all through here. And plus it has this hydrocarbon area. And so vitamin D is also very fat soluble. Because it is non-polar. Right? So both vitamin A and vitamin D are fat soluble vitamins because they are non-polar. Again, you need to recognize that for your test. Now vitamin C, on the other hand, it has all of these OH groups around it. And these OH groups are going to make vitamin C a polar molecule. And so therefore vitamin C is going to be water soluble. Alright, so let's summarize here. Vitamin A is fat soluble and nonpolar because it has this long nonpolar hydrocarbon chain up here that you see, plus this ring structure which makes it nonpolar. Vitamin D is also nonpolar with all of its ring structures there. But vitamin C, because of the OH groups that are represented around vitamin C, absorbic acid, it's going to be polar, and therefore vitamin C is water soluble. And the fact is, you can probably have a lot of vitamin C. I don't even know if you can really overdose on vitamin C because it's water soluble. However, vitamin A and vitamin D being fat soluble, we have to be careful of intaking too much of those. So we have to regulate those. Again, you do not need to know or memorize these structures. You just need to know that they are found in Table 21 in your IB data booklet. Okay, so the rest of this presentation is really looking at malnutrition in human body throughout the world. And what you really need to understand is that when we're lacking important nutrients in our body that we need, we create nutrient deficiencies. Nutrient deficiencies can be the fact of lack of food availability. You do not have a balanced diet. Those can be all leading factors to bringing in a nutrient deficiency. And of course, nutrient deficiencies are going to result in diseases. Some of these diseases that you're familiar with are like obesity and diabetes. Alright, what we're going to focus on is three major malnutrition deficiencies in the world. One of the big ones is lack of iodine. Iodine is very important to the diet. And believe it or not, throughout the world, we don't get enough iodine in our diet. Now, iodine is needed to synthesize a hormone called thoraxin. And thoraxin regulates our metabolic rate in our thyroid. And so if we lack that iodine, then what happens is our thyroid neck begins to swell and enlarge. And if you look in your IB book, you'll see a picture of the deficiency of iodine and the swelling of the thyroid. And this has got a specific name, growth, and you need to make sure you're aware of this. Now, one of the things about malnutrition for the IB test is you need to be able to identify the malnutrition, such as iodine, and then what the disease results in, as well as what we're doing to fix that disease. And for iodine deficiency, for one thing, what we're doing is we're adding iodine to salt. So salt, salt, adding iodine to our salt is helping us to reduce iodine deficiency throughout the world. And it's very cheap and inexpensive, really, to add iodine to salt. And so when you go to the grocery store and you look at salt, it'll say iodized salt or uniodized salt. So iodized salt has iodine added to it. Alrighty, so another malnutrition is vitamin A deficiency. And with vitamin A deficiency, it can cause night blindness, it can cause loss of eyesight, and so forth. And usually, vitamin A is important for our eyesight so that we can see better, as well as it acts as an antioxidant, which means that it gets rid of toxins or things that cause free radicals. We usually get vitamin A from eating orange or yellow fruits and vegetables, and this is the deficiency of night blindness you need to be aware of, and so you need to learn it. Now, how are we fixing vitamin A deficiencies? Well, we're adding vitamin A to margarine, which is an easy and inexpensive process, and rice as well, which rice is something we're kind of exploring on there. Okay, now another malnutritional problem that's huge in our world is iron deficiency. And iron deficiency leads to anemia. Anemia is very common. Iron is needed in our hemoglobin to transport oxygen throughout our body. Where do we get iron from? Well, besides meat, which meat is a huge source of iron, but we also can get iron in cereal and in milk, and which we're working on there. Okay, these are some of the problems with the lack of iron. Is of course fatigue, feeling tired, brittle nails, and poor endurance, plus lower immunity. So make sure you're familiar with iron deficiencies, what anemia is, what it's caused by, and that we use cereal and milk to help boost our iron, as well as meats. Alright, now we're going to look at some macronutrient deficiencies. Those were all micro, now macro deficiencies. One of the most common macro deficiency is, believe it or not, protein deficiency. And this is called marasmus. And this is just basically failure to gain weight, followed by a large amount of weight loss. Krusherskers is basically low protein and too much starch. So you have a high starch diet, but a low protein diet. Okay, so those are all examples of some malnutritional problems in our body. IB really expects you to be able to um, basically state the malnutrition, uh, what are the causes of that malnutrition, and what we are doing about it to fix that malnutrition. So a lot of this is really getting into your book and learning, taking the time to learn these different malnutritional problems, and they're gonna ask you for specific names of these malnutritional deficiencies and what we are doing in the world to take care of those problems. Okay, so we're going to end the tutorial here. We are going to start a new tutorial that will finish this PowerPoint up with hormones um, a little bit later here. So that's it for right now.